Hi, I'm Claire, and this is my reading wrap-up for March 2017. I read 6 things in March, 3 of which were for Sisterhood of the Traveling Paperbacks, which is the book club podcast that I'm on with Kay, who is at KTaylorRay on Twitter, and Chelsea, who is the Reading Outlaw here on YouTube. I'm going to start by mentioning these 3 books, saying very quickly what they are about and how I felt about them, but I won't go into a ton of detail about any of those because they will all have full podcasts about them. The first one was Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, and the podcast for that is already out, so you can go and listen to it if you like. I will leave a link in the description box below. The book follows a girl called Karu. She lives in Prague with her family, who are all secretly chimera. They all happen to be fantastical beings with animal as well as human aspects. One day she is running an errand for her guardian Brimstone when she runs into a beautiful yet terrifying winged creature who we learn is called Akiva, and then everything changes. Now, I really enjoyed quite a lot about this book. The prose in particular is really beautiful, and I liked most of the characters, but I found it to have severe structural issues, or a lot of things to me that I could see would have worked much better done in slightly different ways. The book kind of switches genre midway through. It starts out as urban fantasy and then goes into like proper secondary world fantasy quite far along the book, and it's just really jarring. I won't be continuing this particular series, but I'm quite interested in checking out Laini Taylor's new book, Strange the Dreamer, which a lot of people have had a lot of good things to say about. Next, we read A Trifle Dead by Livia Day. This is a pen name for Tansy Rayner Roberts. The book is about a woman called Tabitha who runs a bakery slash cafe in Hobart in Australia. Tabitha has lived in Hobart her whole life. She knows everyone in town. She always has a bunch of police officers hanging out in her cafe because her dad used to be the police chief in Hobart, so she knows all of the cops. We also meet the people who live and work above her cafe, including a new arrival who happens to be Scottish and pretty hot, but also kind of shady, and the band who lives on the 2nd floor and find a dead body in a weird net trap in their apartment. And of course from there the mystery picks up. I really enjoyed this book. I don't read a lot of mystery novels, so this was quite new to me, but I really enjoyed most of it. I found it really easy to read. When I got into a groove, I ended up finishing this book at like 3 in the morning and directly ordering the next one. I really enjoyed most of the characters and their dynamics in this book, and particularly for a genre that I'm not usually that fond of or that well versed in, I thought it was delightful. And the last book that I read for the podcast this month was The Graces by Law Eve. This book is about a high schooler named River who arrives in a new school. Now, there are a lot of things that she doesn't know, but she knows very quickly what it is that they are saying about the Graces. The Grace siblings are unattainable and cool and beautiful, and everybody worships the ground that they walk on, but they also say that Summer, Talia, and Fenrin are witches. And of course River wants to befriend them and learn what's really going on there. And I have to say, even though this was my pick for the book club, I have heard a lot of good things about this book and a lot of like, buzz around it in general. I didn't love it all that much. I thought the book achieved what it was trying to do pretty well, but I didn't love what it was that it was trying to do, because it's all about lies and deception and secrets, and the atmosphere overall of this book I found quite oppressive and a little bit depressing. At the end of the day, even though it's fine to have unlikable characters, I do like having someone that I can find relatable and that I can root for, and in this book there's not that many like characters that I ended up liking. The prose was very beautiful, but just like the general atmosphere of the book I didn't enjoy. So again, I won't be checking out the sequel for this one, but I might well look at some of Laura Eve's other writing. In non-podcast books this month, the first thing that I read was The Little Homo-sapiens Scientist by S.L. Huang. This is a novelette that was published by Booksmongers Publishing, and it's a teeny tiny paper copy of it that I bought because Anna tweeted about this limited edition copy and it was a beautiful cover, and I am weak. I had no idea what it was going to be about, and as it turns out it is a dark twisted retelling of The Little Mermaid, where instead of having a mermaid who wants to come to land, we have a sci-fi twist on that story. There is a species of underwater beings who have been found. Everybody of course calls them mermaid, but that's not quite the accurate scientific term for them, and our protagonist, who is a human scientist as per the title of the story, is someone who is studying these underwater beings and learning about their language and their customs, and in wanting to help one of them she gets herself into deep trouble. Now, I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was ticking along really well. I always enjoy any kind of sci-fi story that's about an alien species or a new species and discovering language and customs. That kind of sociological sci-fi really appeals to me, but in this book it's the ending, the gut punch ending, which just made me go like, no, that can't be it. I mean, it's perfect, but it can't be. I actually put this one on my Hugo nomination ballot, so that should tell you I thought of it fairly highly. Next, I read Parasite by Mira Grant. This is a sci-fi medical thriller in the same kind of vein as her previous trilogy, the Newsflesh series, except instead of the impending apocalypse being brought along by zombies, the impending apocalypse is being brought along by medicalized, genetically modified tapeworms. This is a near future universe in which humanity's medical problems have been solved by genetically modified tapeworms, which you take in the form of a pill and then they live in your stomach and they dispense medication. Our protagonist is a woman named Sal who 6 years ago miraculously survived a car accident that really should have killed her, and in fact it did kill her for a few minutes. The doctors were about to unplug her life support when she woke back up again because her Symbiogen implant saved her life. I really enjoyed this book. Of course it's a Mira Grant novel, so I expected the chaos, the impending doom of mankind that was caused by tinkering with things we shouldn't have tinkered with and going too far with medical experiments without enough oversight. All that kind of thing was great. I also really loved the characters and the prose in this book. Mira Grant is a pseudonym for Shauna Maguire, who is one of my favorite authors at the moment, and she just has such a beautiful voice when she writes. She does some very lyrical things with some text repetition throughout this book, and you wouldn't necessarily expect that in like this medical thriller about tapeworms, but there is some really beautiful writing in here. And I always find her characters extremely compelling. There are some twists and turns in this book that I kind of saw coming, but some of them really did surprise me. So overall, I was quite happy with this, and I will definitely be continuing the series. The second book is called Symbiont, and the third book is called Chimera. And the last thing that I read this month was a memoir called Control-Alt-Delete, How I Grew Up Online by Emma Gannon. And it does basically what it says on the tin. It's the story of the internet coming into our lives more and more as we grew from young teenagers onwards. Emma Gannon is a blogger who was born in 1989, which is apparently the same year that the internet was born. She talks about a lot of different things in this book, and they are all things that you will very strongly relate to if you're in the same kind of age range as she is. She talks about the days of dial-up where you had to hear that little screechy noise when you turned on the internet, and you had to make sure that no one needed to use the phone, otherwise the internet connection would cut out. And she talks about going on MSN Messenger after school. She talks about the kind of computer setup that we used to have, where there was a family computer in the computer room or the computer corner of the living room, and we all had to kind of try and make sure that we could access the computer when we wanted to, even though maybe your siblings or your parents wanted to be on it at the same time. I thought it was a really fun read. I related to a lot of the stories in the book. It reminded me a lot of things that happened to me. I didn't necessarily find it groundbreaking because a lot of the things that she discussed in more detail are all things that I've already thought about quite a lot, because there are things that people my age on the internet do talk about quite a bit. Things like girls' self-esteem and body image, our relationship with images of ourselves that we put out on the internet, all that kind of thing. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was still good and interesting to listen to, so I'd recommend that one if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. So that's it. Those were the things that I read in March of 2017. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these, or if you have any books that you'd like to recommend to me based on the books that I talked about. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video right here, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button that's on my face for more videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.